going on, everybody? It's Wednesday, and Wednesdays mean Q&A day. As I've said a million times, this is my favorite video each and every week, and it's not really even close. I absolutely love doing this. It's super interesting to hear what you all are interested in, and then, who doesn't like sharing their opinion? So this is a lot of fun for multiple reasons, and then I always like hearing what you all have to say about my opinions. And remember, these are just opinions. I am not a financial advisor. I am not a financial analyst. I am not a retirement planner. I'm just simply a guy with a phone that sits on a tripod, and I talk to it sometimes. And then I post those videos for all of us to talk about. That's it. So, this week's questions are really tough questions. And it's not the tough question of who's the best hitter of all time. They're not tough like that. They're tough in that I don't think that there's a right answer to a lot of these questions. So regardless of what I say, I know there are going to be a lot of opinions saying, no, you forgot about this or you forgot about that. And that's cool. That's part of the point. It's like sports talk radio. If the host gives an opinion and nobody ever calls in and tells them how their opinion is terrible or great, then it's not really that interesting. So let me know which of these topics you do or don't agree with. And remember, if you have a question that you would like featured in an upcoming episode, down below, simply type it into the comments. All you have to do is type your question into the comments. I go through them once a week. I pick 5. If I don't use your question, then simply ask it again next week so I don't forget about it. I don't overlook it. I'm responding to lots of comments and stuff, and that's important, and I love doing that. But the remembering that there was a really good question from the previous week that didn't get used is not something that I'm very good at. So please just simply ask your question again. That said, my first brutally tough question that I don't think there's a right answer for is right here. My question is, I'm thinking about selling my whole collection, which is worth thousands of dollars, over 50 years of collecting. Should I sell it in this down market or wait it out and sell when it's a seller's market? Man, so first of all, I'm bummed. I'm bummed that you're thinking about selling. I'm bummed that you're thinking about getting out of the hobby. But I get it, too. I get it. Everybody's got a different situation. And sometimes we need money. Sometimes we'd prefer to have money. Sometimes there's something else we'd rather do with our assets. And if you have a lot of money, thousands of dollars, it sounds like, tied up in card assets, and there's something else where the money is needed that's more important, I totally get it. And if later you say, I was having too much fun with that, you can always get back in. You can. So if there are any cards that are especially sentimental and especially important to you, I would encourage you to maybe hold off on those. But let's talk about the rest. The market is down. There's no doubt about it. Well, the market is down from where it was 2 years ago. But if we go back 5 years, 10 years, and you looked at where the market is now, if somebody had said to you that your cards would be worth what they are right now, 10 years ago, my guess is most collectors that have been in the last 10 years would be very happy with the numbers of what their cards are worth right now. Now, it feels like things are way down because they're way down from this bubble of, fake monopoly money that was flowing. And so it does feel like a down market. But again, if you just kind of take that major spike out of a year or two, and you look at the trajectory of how things were going, I think if you've been a collector for 50 years, you're doing really well at today's prices. So that's the first thing I'll say. In the big perspective, if you take a step back and you look at where things are right now, you've got to be happy with what they're worth. So keep that in mind. Now, when you've been collecting for 50 years and you're selling your PC, there's going to be a lot of emotional attachment to a lot of these cards. So that's going to make it tough. And everybody thinks that their cards are undergraded. Everybody thinks that their cards are worth more than they are. It's just like our houses, right? It's like the house 3 doors down sells, and it's the same model as yours. And theirs sells for $500,000. And you go, well, mine's got to be worth $530,000 because mine's way nicer than that. Everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks that their stuff is a little bit nicer than everybody else's. Just like we all think that our kids are a little bit more special than everybody else's kids. That's normal. So getting what they're worth versus getting what you might feel that they're worth, those might be two different numbers. And so it will be very, very difficult for you to remove that attachment that you have to your cards, to liquidate them, because you're going to feel like they're probably worth more than they probably really are. I think whenever you're dealing with investing, trying to time the market is kind of a dangerous thing, because you say, oh, I'm going to wait to sell the house because the house is, we're in a down market right now. But are we? I mean, are we in a down market for cards? I mean, it's possible that if we look forward 3 years, things are way lower than they are now. So this wasn't a down market. But it's possible that things, kind of shoot back up a little bit. And we've had our little correction and maybe things shoot up. That's also possible. So it is possible that we're in a down market. None of us know. It's the whole crystal ball question of what's going to happen next. Nobody really knows. Now, I think the economy is certainly, on not stable footing. I definitely think that there are a lot of people who were in the hobby who've kind of pulled out. I mean, even if you look at, content creators, even if you look at YouTube channels, there are a lot of YouTube channels that were pumping out content, and it has slowed way down in the last year. But not me. Not me. I have not slowed down. I am full bore. Let's go. But you get my point. So whether we're in a down market and we're at a bottom of a valley, or we're still really high up on that peak before a much bigger drop comes, nobody knows. So my question to you would be, do you need the money now? If you need the money now, if you've got some expense coming up, if you're going to sell your cards to pay for, a grandkid's college fund, or you're going to, improve your house, or you're going to sell your house and put it into upgrading your house, or you have that trip that you have planned that you and your spouse have been wanting to go on for your whole lives, and you're going to use this collection to pay for this amazing trip that you've always dreamed of. If you need the money now, then I think you sell now. If you don't need the money now, and you're just saying, I don't want to leave this burden to my family when I'm gone, that they have to deal with it, so I just want to liquidate it now so that they don't have to deal with it when I'm gone, then I think you dollar cost average it. What I would do is I would dollar cost average it. I would just slowly start to sell it off. I would piece it out. I wouldn't sell it as a collection because you're never going to get the full value. I would start selling it myself and piecing it out. A couple of cards a week, 3, 4, 5 cards a week, depends on the size of the collection. And then over the next few months or couple of years, you sell it off. That way, if we are at a peak, then you sold some of them at the peak. But if we're at a valley and it starts to go back up, then you sold some of them at the valley and some of them on the way back up and some of them much higher. So I think the safest way to do it is to space it out and sell it yourself, because then you're going to get the most value out of it. And if you don't want to deal with selling it yourself, you could consign it to someone to sell it off for you over time. But doing one whole lot and having somebody come in and offer you 70% or 60% or 65% of what it's worth in one big deal, right now, that's probably not what I would do. But if you just want to wipe your hands of it and just be done, I can't blame you for doing that. But the safer move is sell it yourself over time, maximizing each sale along the way. But if you need the money now, for whatever reason, then you should sell it now. But if you don't need the money now, I would recommend doing it over time. But that's just me. Again, I'm not your retirement planner or investment advisor. I'm just a dude with a cell phone and a tripod. A great uncle you've never met leaves you a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle graded 7. Do you keep it for your personal collection, or do you send it to an auction house? I mean, fabulous question. Wouldn't we all love this windfall, right? Wouldn't that be amazing to have this massive card fall in our laps? Especially because you don't have like an emotional attachment to it. It's your great uncle who you've never met. Basically, you just falls in your lap. What do you do? And it's so interesting that you ask this, because I've been talking with my dad a lot lately, and I think we all go back and forth on this, is whether to consolidate our collection or not. And a year ago I did a video on this, and I asked my audience, I said, what do we do? Do we go a lot of stuff, a lot of mid stuff, or just a few really big epic cards? And that's really the question here. Would you rather have the one massive card? Or if you sold that card, just think of the stuff that you could buy with it. I mean, you could have an incredible collection if you sold it and used the money to buy other stuff. Right now, I'm kind of on this little bit of a consolidation kick. And I'm going to talk to you about it soon, because I bought a pretty big card this week. Not the banks. I did not buy the banks. But I bought a pretty big card, and I'm going to a show this weekend, and I might buy another pretty big one that I have my eye on. But we're going to talk about that later, but that's really the question here, right? Do I want this massive card or a bunch of pretty cool cards? With this particular example, because this particular card is worth so much, I don't think I need a PSA 7 or SGC 7 mantle. I would be totally content having a decent 2 or a 3. I mean, I'd be happy with a 1. But I would probably trade this down. I'd probably sell it. I'd probably go buy a decent like 2 or 3, 3.5, something like that. And then I would take all the extra money and I would buy a whole bunch of other stuff that I want. But, I'd go buy an Aaron rookie. I'd go buy the Mays rookie, a Clemente rookie, a Koufax rookie. I'd get some pre-war stuff, some T206 stuff. I would get a bunch of stuff by moving down from the 7 to like a 3 or so. But that's because this is a massive card. Now, if the card that my, great uncle that I've never met left me was like, a 58 Mantle in a 6, I'd probably keep it. I'd probably just keep it. But this card is so big that you're talking about. It's so expensive that I think, no, I would have to move down on the card and then get a bunch of other stuff too. But consolidation of your collection is a topic that I'm very, very interested in. And I'm interested in everybody's opinion on. And when this card that I bought recently shows up, we're going to talk about how I'm paying for it and why I'm doing it. It's interesting. And it's not a massive card, but for me, it's big. For some people, it's not a big card. For me, it's a big card. So let's look at the next question. Do you think it makes more fiscal sense to buy a fair market priced graded card or to buy raw and send them in? I'm interested in collecting cards for my own enjoyment and one day pass them down to my grandchildren. Okay. I'm glad you included the word fiscal. Does it make more financial sense? Because there are a lot of traditionalists out there who go, why do you even grade? If it's all about the card and not about the grade, why do you even grade? And I think it's a fair question. I don't think there's a great answer. I think there are some decent answers. One of the answers to me is authentication. And another reason to me is when you want to liquidate, it's easier and faster to liquidate. So if I got hit by a truck tomorrow and none of my cards were graded, that's going to be a much bigger headache for my family to liquidate my collection than if I get hit by a truck and everything's in PSA and SGC holders. It'd be very easy for them to liquidate it and know what it's all worth. So one of the main reasons for grading is that. But there's another reason. There's another important factor. See, the price of things is supply and demand, right? So you're saying right now, and I just mentioned a moment ago, that if you have a card that you're looking to eventually liquidate or somebody's going to be liquidating, it's way easier for them if the card is graded. And it's way easier to know what it's worth because you have to kind of understand, like, if I say to a longtime collector, hey, yeah, what do you think this card is? And they'd go, we could go, that's in the 5-6 range. That's a X mint. That's a near mint to mint. That's an X mint to near mint. Like, we could probably look at it and come to a pretty similar conclusion. But if you're somebody who doesn't know anything about cards and now all of a sudden you've inherited all of these cards, you want them graded because it just makes it easier for them. It's a gift to them to leave them graded cards if you're going to be leaving cards. That's my opinion. Now, there are a lot of people who don't want to buy ungraded cards because they don't trust their own eyes. They don't trust the lighting in the room at the show. They don't trust the seller on eBay or whatnot or Golden Auction, or they don't really trust whoever they're buying it from. So a lot of people just stay away. Like for me even, and I feel like I could probably spot most fakes. In fact, I've had a lot of times I've actually had dealers at shows say, hey Greg, do you think this is real? And I think I'm pretty accurate. But even feeling confident, I'm not really that interested in buying a card that is ungraded, that is raw, for more than, I don't know, say $300. Would I? I would if I felt like there's no way that I could get burned on the deal. Like, I know this card, even if this card got an authentic trimmed, I could still get this amount for it. But for the most part, I don't really want to go there because I I don't have the funds to deal with that kind of loss. So there are a lot of people like that. So to me, and you know what? When I'm at a show, you know what I don't want to do? When I'm looking at a card that I'm super interested in, I don't want to take out another card and check the size to make sure it's not trimmed. I don't want to do that. And I don't want to get out my loop and look the card over to make sure that there aren't any marks on it. I don't want to do that. And you can't do that online. So, I mean, to me, if I'm spending more than about $300, I'm going to get the card graded. I'm going to have the card already be graded. It's just kind of peace of mind for me. And since there are a lot of people who share that opinion, what that means is the demand for ungraded cards is lower, right? If there are a lot of collectors out there that don't want to deal with the process of getting a card graded, or maybe it having been altered, or maybe it having something done, or they just don't want to deal with that, there are less people willing to buy it. There aren't a lot of collectors out there that are like, nope, I will not buy a graded card. There are some, but most collectors are fine buying cards that have been graded. But there are a lot of collectors that aren't confident or aren't willing or aren't wanting to buy a card that hasn't been graded. So now your demand is lower for that card. So from a strictly financial point of view, if you've got a good eye, if you can detect, fakes and alterations, and you are confident in that, if you buy raw cards, you're getting a better deal than graded cards, just because of the demand for the cards from the average collector out there. That's just, a lot of people make a living out of buying raw, having a good eye, buying raw, getting graded, selling the graded card. A lot of people do that. So the question is, financially, what's the best way to go about it? Well, from a strictly financial point of view, the best way to go about it is to buy raw and get graded. No doubt. But you have to factor into those finances. There's probably going to come an instance or two where you miss a wrinkle or a crease or a pen mark or a card that got altered. And that's going to, it's going to happen, unfortunately. So financially, if you're trying to grow the biggest collection for the least amount of money, which is what it sounds like, and then hold long-term to enjoy, and then somebody else is going to inherit them and they're going to liquidate them, I think buying ungraded, then getting graded, and then having graded for those that will receive it someday is probably the best fiscal move. And that was the question. What's your impression of the validity of the pop reports when so many disgruntled customers crack their slabs? That single card could show up multiple times on PSA, or even concurrently on both PSA and SGC. Okay, so anybody who thinks that the whole cracking and resubmitting thing is like a new phenomenon, I've got a news flash for you. This has been happening since the late 90s when PSA really took off. This has been happening for a really long time. I've mentioned my dad's, 59 and 60 sets that he had that were like PSA 8 averages. I know of a couple of cards that he submitted like 4 or 5 times because he didn't agree with the grade. Like the same card. So I don't remember if it was like a 6 to a 7 or a 7 to an 8, but like there were a couple of cards I remember, cracked it, sent it back in, didn't get the grade again, cracked it again, sent it back in, didn't get the grade again, cracked it, sent it. So there are a bunch on the pop report. There are a bunch of these grades that are supposed to be in existence, but they're the same card. That is not a new thing. That is not, oh, well, PSA's gotten their tougher standards and now people are doing that now. That's been happening a really long time. So that's something to consider. Absolutely. And then there are people who, have something in a PSA holder and they cross it over to SGC because they prefer SGC, or they cross it over from SGC into PSA. So it's not like, I don't know how it works, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, hey, SGC, this is a courtesy call from PSA. Your serial number 597732 is no longer in an SGC holder. So you should probably take that off the pop report because it's now in a PSA holder. I don't think that's happening. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident that that's not happening. So anytime there's a crossover, the pop report reflects a card that doesn't exist either. So, do I think that pop reports are accurate? Of course they're not accurate, but they're a clue. They're a gauge. They're an idea of how many approximately are out there, right? Now, if it's like a rare card, like an Allen and Ginter card from the 1880s, and there are 2 6s, right, and none higher. It's possible that 6 got cracked for a higher grade, and then it got another 6. That's possible, but I think there's probably 2 of them out there. I don't think there are a lot of people cracking cards that have none graded higher. But if we're talking about like a 59 Mickey Mantle in a 5 grade, where if it goes from a 5 to a 6, it jumps hundreds of dollars, I think a fair amount of those have been cracked. I don't think a lot of 9s have been cracked, so I think the 9 pop report is probably pretty accurate. I think the 1 pop report is probably pretty accurate. But I think that 4, 5, 6 kind of range in the middle, where people are hoping to get a bump, those are certainly nothing that I think are letter of the law numbers by any means. But it is a gauge. It is a guide for how many are out there. So I agree that it's not accurate, but it's better than nothing because at least it gives us an idea. But I think most pop reports, especially in mid-grades, are overestimates. The real number is actually 5% lower, 10% lower than is actually on the pop report. Who do you think are the top 5 QBs of all time? What is your favorite card of each? All right. So I love Ken's questions. Ken asks questions quite often, and they're great questions, and I've used them several times. And he likes lists. He asks me list questions a lot, and the overlap of players and cards and what cards I like, and I like that a lot. The problem is whenever I give you guys a list, you guys just absolutely just beat on me with the guys that were just misses from my list. Like last week, the question was, who do you think are the top 5 pitchers of all time? And what is your favorite card of each of those pitchers? And I go through my list, and then just people just absolutely just pounded me for not having Nolan Ryan on it, and not having Bob Gibson on it, not having Warren Spahn on it. I thought I was going to start getting hate mail because, I was getting hate mail because of it, which is fine. It's fine. It's just like I always say whenever I do a list, it's not about who you put on the list. It's about the people who just missed the list that everybody gets fired up about. So, with that said, I'll take my shot at this, but I am going to put a couple of stipulations into my answer. So, to me, there are 2 quarterbacks that are far and away better than all other quarterbacks. This is Greg's opinion. for better or worse, those two are Joe Montana and Tom Brady, right? So those two are clearly going to be on the list. To me, that they're just like 1A, 1B. Now, I'm a 49er fan. I've been a 49er fan since I was a kid. I've watched a ton of Niner games. I watched Joe Montana win a bunch of Super Bowls. So I'm obviously as high on Montana as anyone. Except for maybe Mrs. Montana. Now, here's my thought. I love the Montana rookie card. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous card. It is, I have one in an 8. To me, it looks closer to a 10 than an 8. I think it is absolutely beautiful, and I've legitimately considered sending it in to have it regraded because I think it's so undergraded. But the Joe Montana rookie card is the Montana card. He has some other cool cards. That's the card for Montana for me. For Brady, I think you got to go with the iconic Bowman Chrome rookie card. Like he has a lot of cool cards, no doubt about it. But when I think of Tom Brady card, that's the first card that pops into my mind. So Brady and Montana, those are those two cards. Now, after this, here's my stipulation. I'm not gonna include anybody who's still playing. Okay? To me, anybody who's still playing is not included on the all-time list yet. We determine where you stack up on the all-time list. Once your career is over, it's complete. The chapter has been written and the book has been closed. Then we evaluate you. So I'm not going to include anybody currently playing. And there are a couple of really good ones who are still active. So who are the other 3? Well, I think I've got to go with Autogram. You don't win that many championships. I mean, because ultimately, quarterbacks are judged by whether they win championships and how many championships they win. That's the reason why Brady and Montana are so high on the list, right? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are really high on Mahomes, is those guys have won championships. And Autogram won an insane number of championships. So Autogram is on my list. Autogram, and you go, oh my gosh, Autogram wouldn't even be on the practice squad for a team nowadays. Okay, maybe so, but Autogram's on my list. Now, Autogram has a lot of cool cards, and I really, I like vintage football, so a lot of my picks are going to lean that way. I'm going to go with his 1952 Bowman. I think that's the most beautiful Autogram card. I think it is beautiful. I have one myself. I showed it fairly recently in a video where I was comparing it to some things. But the 52 Bowman Autogram, love it. So that's my third pick. I don't think you can have a list of all-time best quarterbacks if you don't have Johnny Unitas on it. Now, Johnny Unitas has a lot of great cards. In fact, about a year ago, I bought a collection from someone that was every Johnny Unitas card, from rookie card to the end, and they were all ungraded. Speaking of buying ungraded cards, I bought the whole thing, and I sent the rookie in, and it got a 5. I sold it. I didn't buy that collection to keep, although someday I would like to have a Unitas rookie card. And so I've literally had every single Unitas card, at least from the major companies, the Philadelphias and the Tops and stuff. And quite frankly, I love his rookie card. I think it's it's either a double or a triple print. So it's actually fairly affordable because there's a fair amount of them out there. But the Johnny Unitas rookie card is the one I'm going to go with. So far I've got 4. 3 of the cards are rookie cards, which, that's kind of the iconic card. I mean, who doesn't want iconic cards? But I love that third year Autogram. So that brings me down to my last pick, And there are a lot of people going, I cannot believe he hasn't said Peyton Manning yet. I can't believe he hasn't said Marino. I can't believe he hasn't said Bart Starr. Can't believe he hasn't said, Elway or, Staubach or, some people might even say Namath. Now, Namath was cool, but that guy threw a lot of interceptions. So I don't think you can be a top 5 quarterback and of all time and throw as many interceptions as he threw. Now, I know a lot of people just clicked off, I hate this guy, unsubscribed, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm not going to please everybody. But so which of those guys, now I can make an argument for all of those guys, and there's an argument that could be made for some of the guys that didn't talk. I mean, part of me wants to pick Sammy Baugh as my 5th because of how much I love the 1950 Bowman Sammy Baugh. That card is gorgeous. Like, that is an amazing looking card. So as I was thinking about this answer, I'm like, well, where do I go? Is there a way I can weasel in Sammy Baugh into the pick so that I can pick that card because I love that card so much? But the question was not what are my 5 favorite cards. The question is do I think are the 5 best quarterbacks? And what is my favorite card of each? That's the question. Man, this is brutal. This is brutal, and you guys are going to be throwing rotten tomatoes at me for a week. I'm going to go Bart Starr. Bart Starr, final answer. And I love his rookie card. 57. The 57 Topps football cards are awesome. They're awesome. And Bart Starr's rookie card is awesome. That's my pick. I know. Elway, Marino, Baugh, Manning. I mean, there's more. You guys are pissed about. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But I'm going Bart Starr is number 5. If you have a question for next week, if you haven't unsubscribed yet, down below, go ahead and just simply ask your question in the comments below. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And I'm nervous about reading the comments that y'all are about to leave down below.